Thanks for the download. Before we start this episode, it'd be great if you could rate the podcast on Spotify or iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from, as this helps me know how we're doing, the content is hitting the mark, and also helps bring it to the attention of a wider audience. If you do like the pod and you like to support it, then you can check out the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes, which helps with ongoing costs such as website hosting. My guest today is Andy McNab, former UK Special Forces soldier, author and businessman. And on this episode, we discuss his chaotic childhood, his army service, functioning psychopaths, book writing, shooting Hollywood films, and his latest project with We Served, a service for veterans by veterans. Let's crack on. So my guest tonight is Andy McNab, soldier, author and businessman. Won't read an introduction for most people, I'd imagine. And most soldiers have a life in three parts, which is usually pre-army, which is their childhood and teenage years, the time in the army, and then the post-army life. So Andy and I are going to use these as sort of discussion themes tonight. So my first question, Andy, is, how did your childhood form you, and who or what circumstances were the main influences in developing your character?
I don't think it sort of got me prepared for the army, because it was the last thing I was thinking of, really. I should imagine the biggest influence I had was my elder brother. Before I was South London, I was sort of moving around a lot. But, I was on the council, then he was off the council, I was on the States, he was in and out. I went to about 9 schools, primary schools, because I was moving around all the time. And the only constant was my elder brother. I said it was already lost home. But he wasn't actually my natural brother, because myself and him were adopted at different times out of the same home. So it's sort of, maybe that's the reason why, because I didn't really know him. I sort of knew him when he was at the home. So there was something to sort of latch on, really. And basically, all he wanted to do was get out there and make some money. And I thought, right, that's what I want to do.
It's interesting you say that you were adopted, you came from sort of a challenging background. And that's not an unusual story in the army. And I think the army offers, not a refuge, that's the wrong word, but offers a way out for a lot of people. When you walked into the Army Careers Office to join up, how would you describe your younger self at that time?
Well, do you know what? It was a different sort of situation. Because I was in juvenile detention, I was in what's called the Borstal system. And obviously I knew nothing about this, what was going on. There was a lot of organisations and NGOs that were lobbying the government at the time to say the Borstal system, this short, sharp shock, just doesn't work, because there's no rehabilitation, there's no education. So there were groups that went in to different Borstals, and one of the options for, in effect, social mobility was the army. So the idea was, if you got accepted into the army, again, I was only 16, so I was going to go into junior service, but if you got accepted in the army by going away for those 3-day assessments up at Sutton Coldfield at the time, you didn't go back to the Borstal. You went back to your gatekeeper, your guardian, parent, gatekeeper, whatever the term would be. And in effect, they would say, sign a document to say that they're going to sort of look after you and control you until you had a reporting day. It really wasn't the fact that, and in fact, I had to go to the recruiting office. So done all that sort of stuff. Then I had to go to Blackheath, which is in South East London, and do the recruitment thing, where you give your pledge in front of the Queen's picture and all that sort of stuff. And you're absolutely right. Getting there, I didn't like all the hollering and shouting and all that sort of stuff. I went into an infantry junior leaders battalion down in Shorncliffe. I didn't particularly like all that. It just felt like Borstal. But what I loved was the fact is that you had your own bed space, and it was your bed space, your locker, and actually you paid for it as well. So all of a sudden you had this thing that was yours. And the way that the training sergeants, it was all about, well, that's yours, and you got to look after it, and so you go through that system. And I really like that. And the fact that, I don't know, you come back from exercises at the Infantry Junior Leaders Battalion, IGLB, you done this thing called company training every week. So after the RSM's drill parade on Friday morning, you was out in the field until Sunday morning. So, company training. When you got back, the platoon commander would inspect your feet. No one's looked at my feet to make sure they're all right, and talk you out to cut your toenails and all that. And I really liked that. I thought, because I had no idea. I had no idea. I didn't even know how to brush my teeth properly, really.
Yeah, those life skills. I was quite lucky. I came from a reasonable council estate. My mum and dad were still together. And I look back on it now, and there's guys turn up at my basic training. They had a plastic bag with a toothbrush in it, and that was it. And these guys were escaping backgrounds that were really hard, really hard. Did you identify with that as well from your situation?
No, totally, absolutely, totally. I was a training corporal. I'd done a tour as a training corps when I was in the Green Jackets, and it was exactly the same experience. We had to show, literally, explanation, demonstration, imitation, how to have a shower, how to brush your teeth, why you've got to brush your teeth, why you've got to have a shower, down to cleaning your ears out, and all that sort of stuff, and actually show them what to do and make sure that they imitated it, because there was all these, if you like, these life skills. Unfortunately, they just weren't there. They just weren't there, and literally, because they get a packing list, they never turned up with that. Literally, you're right. A pair of socks and toothbrush, and that's it. And then we had to go through the process. As soon as they get their first day's pay, it's organised like a job lot of stuff. So they had soap, they had shampoo, they had, all this sort of stuff. And again, this is why I'm so pro the military. It's the last sort of bastion of social mobility left. It's an amazing system.
Totally agree. And just flicking back to the Borstal bit, Borstal's, I'm probably a little bit younger than you, but not much. If you're threatened with Borstal, where I came from, you've crapped your pants, basically, because it was a tough old gig. Did that help prepare you in some way, though?
Yeah, do you know, it put in a over, one of the reasons why I figured out I'll on about this army business, see if they'll let me in, because I just wanted to get out of it. Absolute nightmare. I remember there's a film years ago come out called Skull.
Ray Winston.
Ray Winston, Ray Winston, he's in a booster, all that sort of stuff. And of course, some of it's, sort of slightly sort of exaggerated, but ultimately it was all about this short, sharp shock. It was all about scaring everybody. So, and again, a lot of teenage young men, so all of that sort of violence and all that was going on. So I just wanted to get out of that. It sort of prepared me in a way that once I did get into the army, again, that first sort of 3 months, I didn't particularly like, because of, as you do, all the shouting and the room inspections and all that authority sort of stuff going on. But actually, after that, I realised that I'm really, really happy that I've made that choice just to get out of the Vauxhall. So the way it prepared me, because I knew there was something worse out there.
It always amazes me listening to your backstory there, though, that, again, going back to more experiences, some guys that came from backgrounds similar to yours just could not deal with the authority in the army, and they ended up getting booted out during training. Obviously, you found that adjustment to an authoritative regime a little bit easier. Or did you just think, this is my way out of here, I'm just going to buckle down and go on with it?
It was a mixture, really. It was the fact that after a while, sort of get bedded in, and I'm thinking, well, actually, I quite like this army thing, I was in the infantry, all that sort of stuff. And I started to like it, actually. And then I without realising it, it was sort of, I don't know, when I was about sort of 19, 20 years old, I realised what I formed is it's a mutual contract. So what they were giving me was really even basic stuff, as I said, bed spaces, and actually hot water. And sometimes you have 3 showers a day, so you had something going on, they kick you in the shower, and, the 3-minute shower, all that sort of stuff. And I thought this was amazing, like constant water, loads of food. It almost sounds cliche, but it was amazing. So there was this mutual contract. They're looking after you, they're paying you, they want you to do this job. So therefore, if I want all that stuff, like I did, well, I'll do the job. So it became sort of a mutual contact, really. And certainly, again, it was that sort of 3-month period where I really sort of started seriously to get an education, because up until then I was, I had a reading age of a 9-year-old. That's where I was in the infantry. I think the education pilot stage, Key Stage 2, which I didn't realise, of course, I just bluffed it. So all of a sudden, this mutual contract sort of evolved without me realising it until I was, again, maybe 19, 20 years old.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember I had a friend in basic training who's from Manchester. You're in the cookhouse and the duty officer comes round. How's the food, lads? And my mate looks up and he goes, I'm from Manchester, sir. He goes, I was lucky to get 3 meals a day, never mind 3 hot meals a day.
Exactly. Do you know what I found really sort of freaked me out at first? I used to go into the cookhouse And the deal was, you could have as much as you want, but you had to eat it. And I thought, well, that's all right. You could go up and you get more bill, you had to eat it. And you go, the duty officer, make sure you got extra right where you got to eat it. And you go, okay, that's a fair one.
And for listeners that might not know, you went to junior leaders, and the aim of junior leaders is pretty much similar to what Harrogate's doing now. You're looking at educating and training the future NCOs of the Army. And you said there, Andy, that's where you started getting into being a little bit of education, learning to read and write properly. And did you leave there then sort of fully formed up, being able to read and write quite well?
No, but funny, it was the start. I got being, that first level, I forgot what it was called, the Army Education, Army Certificate of Education or something.
Yeah.
It was like a first sort of, that basic sort of, you require to pass out of IGLB, Infantry Junior Leaders Battalion anyway. I didn't even know they had an Army Education Centre at Shorncliffe where the IGLB was. And this captain came through the door. And to us, we're all 16. It's like the world's oldest soldier. I now know he was 40. But at that stage, he was the world's oldest soldier. Like, we come through the door, and he was an Harry. He'd become an RCM in an infantry battalion, got his commission, but came back to what was doing the Army Education Corps, back to IGLB, because that's where he started, and he had the same sort of problems. So what the guy said, he sort of, again, by now, I've been in the Army like 3-4 months, it's just shut up and sit there and wait for him to, do his bit. And he went over to the window of the classroom, and we were right on the edge of camp, with the barbed wire and the fences and all that. And over the other side of the playing fields, there was there was a small town called Cheriton, and you could just see the roof of Cheriton itself. And he said, that lot over there, they see you lot in here are thick as shit, but you're not. The only reason that you lot can't read and write is because you don't. So today, this is when it all starts, and you're going to start doing it. And you go, all right, you're in the Army now. You go, yeah, okay. And the first book we was all given to read was, there was a series of primary school kid book at that time called Janet and John. It was like a brother and sister, go running around, like climbing trees and all that sort of stuff. Very, very, sort of small book, thin book. And we all started to read Janet and John. And then by the end of the week, because education then became sort of almost night schools, it was Tuesdays and Thursday nights. And on Thursday night, we knew to go to the educator, read the book. There's a little vocabulary on the back. Read the vocabulary out, say what the words meant, and spell them. And he went, right, well, close the book, which I did. Close the book. He went, right, you just read a book and it didn't kill you, did it? And I went, no, sir. And because I just wanted to get out. As you do, didn't you? But he said, you will be in the block tonight, and you're going to remember that. You're going to remember. And I went, yes, sir, yeah. And he was absolutely right. I said, you know what, I just read a book. Just not me. Loads of kids in there. We're all in the same situation. That's why I was in the infantry and not flying helicopters. What the recruiting film was showing. We went over to Sutton Coldfield. A room we allowed to spit a helicopter, let alone sort of fly one. But and so that's where it sort of started. And it was really basic sentence structures, moving on the paragraphs, that sort of thing. And up until then, I couldn't really read the Sun newspaper. Straight away, Sun newspaper, squad's paper of choice, naffy break, a pint of Intel and a steak kidney pie.
Straight to page 3.
Steak, not a lot of reading, so that's all right, isn't it? And then I go back to school pages, and then there was actually words that I didn't know. And now I write for, papers I write for tabloids and, the old sort of style broadsheets, all that. I write for, Wall Street Journal, all these, American papers. So different style sheets, what words you can use, sentence structure, all that sort of stuff. The one thing all of them really have in common, there's a common theme, is that someone with a reading age of a 12-year-old must be able to understand the basic premise of what you're saying. You might not get all the geeky detail, you might not get all this sort of stuff. However, they will understand the points that you're trying to put across. So I'm there like nearly 17. And there's some words in the Sun that was getting confusing for me. I just used to make them up, used to bluff it. So for me, that's when, just make it all up and get it all wrong. And so for me, that's when education started in a big way. And, as I say, we could talk about it later on, but what I do know is once, because I've experienced it, once you get people into it, it's infectious. Once you've got them, you've got them. And
you got to go over that fear hurdle.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so you got into the Royal Green Jackets, and back in those days, Northern Ireland was high up on the list. Rapidly fading from memory of what Northern Ireland was like, and I think Sinn Féin have been allowed to rewrite a lot of the history, which really annoys me. But doing a tour in the province for our generation of soldiers was hugely formative. So how did it shape you as a soldier?
Well, big time, actually. Just, on that, if you look statistically year on year, more soldiers were killed in Northern Ireland than in Afghanistan. And in 1 year alone, 147 were killed. It's a quite, but because it was trickle, Phil, this sort of, the joke on the news. Last night, another soldier, and it was sort of left after that, and nobody really cared.
Yeah.
As an 18-year-old, I joined a battalion. The battalion were coming back to the UK from Gibraltar, so I had a little time in Gibraltar, very exciting. And again, the army ripped me off. I thought it was going to be hot, but it was wet and cold. But so we got back to Tidworth. We started doing that training, NITAC training, I think it's called. To get ready for Northern Ireland. Very exciting.
Yeah.
I still had 2 weeks to go until I was 18. So the battalion left. I wasn't 18 for another 2 weeks. So I stayed at a rear party for the first 2 weeks. And there was this anticipation and excitement to go. And because we were going to South Armagh, B company, 2 hours we got across McGlen, bandit country, all that sort of stuff. I thought it was quite exciting, actually, to get there. Because at that time, we got 50p extra a day. And soft toilet paper. It turned up 2 weeks later, literally on my 18th birthday. So initially, there's that thing, I'm 18 now, I'm a man, I'm up with my chin with better armour on and, all that sort of stuff. 4 days patrolling the town, trying to keep the mortar base gates from moving into the town and mortaring the security force base. 4 days out in the cuds, patrolling the border day and ambushes at night, that sort of stuff. And then 4 days in the security force doing all the Santa duty and the cleaning up, all that sort of stuff. And so I thought, great, this is it. I'm walking around doing the town patrols, all that sort of stuff. And it really wasn't until 2 contacts quite early on. But I found them quite exciting because they wasn't that too dangerous at the time. It was distance, there was a lot of firepower coming down, all that sort of stuff. They were at me, loads of trace out. I thought, well, this is, right, I'm in the army now, this is what we do. So I had this involved in these 2 contacts, and there was this 40mm grenade, the M79 grenade launcher was being issued. So everyone wanted to have a fire of that, 40mm grenades going everywhere. All very exciting. And it wasn't until a lad got blown up by an ID, basically on the edge of town, there was loads of tricolours that was put up, and the policy at that stage was to take them down. So one would come up opposite the church. Nick, who was search trained, he jumped on top of the 2 Saracen armoured cars with the the RPG message on, which stayed in the town only. They had 50 cows because anything outside was getting blown up by IDs. But they got the can up by the flagpole, the telegraph pole where the flag was. Nick down his stuff, checked it all, pulled it, and there was a mercury stick, and just literally annihilated him. I didn't know what to do. I'm like, right, what the fuck do we do now? And it's waiting for somebody to shout out and tell me what to do. So so all that stuff went on. We tried to get Nick down, get him in a poncho and running through town. 50-cal gunner from the can, his face was, bit of that had gone. And so we're running through the town trying to drag this body back. And loads of people started cheering. And I thought, it just, it just really, really fucking annoyed me. So, we got him back. For me, then that sort of changed in a way that thinking it's quite serious business. And then our helicopter got shot down as well with a commanding officer. He went down, a guy called Trillian Michel. So there was, all this sort of stuff going on. I thought, well, actually, it is quite serious. People do get killed.
I think every soldier has a waking up point like that. And similar to you, our troop lost 2 friends. 2 of my friends were killed in our troop in Londonderry in 88. And we did an episode on that tour with a friend of mine who was involved in the IED explosion. 40 years later, he was telling me what he hid from us because we didn't know what PTSD was. And I remember when we got back to camp, him and a couple of other guys were having really bad nightmares. So our solution was to send them down the end of the corridor, put them all in one room, and hope we could all get some sleep. But nobody cottoned on. Nobody cottoned on to what was going on. And after I came off that podcast, I felt so guilty talking to him.
I know. Do you know that? Because there was a tour every year then for about the next 4 years. So if which we do know now, that people, that suffering PTSD. We used to call them jellyheads. They're basically just trying to get out of it. They're trying to get out of a duty. They're trying to get out of this. And then if we had him a platoon who tried to slit his wrists, and they got the medic in, they sort him all out, and then they put him in the battalion jail until orders the next morning, get him on company orders. Well, so there was no, I was just trying to get out of work, and the lads are, slitting his wrists. It was absolutely crazy because at least people get on with it then, and actually when they got out suffering, they make similar green jackets who have suffered quite a lot, again, like 20, 30 years after the event. But ultimately, what you do is just losing really good soldiers. If they got the proper attention that was required at the time, you would retain them. So even on a financial level, it'd be like good for the army to keep these people they get trained. But actually, you're retaining good soldiers.
No, you're right, mate. And it's funny you use that term. We did use that term, jellyhead, but we certainly thought people were blagging it. Down the vehicle park one day, and I thought, and much to my eternal shame, and I'm embarrassed to say it in front of you now, you remember the old 6-foot tables that used to get, that used to go on CPs and stuff? Well, one particular guy that we thought was blagging, I thought it'd be funny to push the 6-foot table over so it lands flat, makes a massive bang. The effect on that guy proved that he wasn't blagging anything. We just did not know back then what people were going through.
No, never at all. No, basically it was, when we even go back into the Second World War, loss of moral fibre and, all these things. The ancient Greeks understood PTSD. The Romans, during the Empire, they understood PTSD. But we sort of tend to have lost it, I think. Well, certainly, days of Empire and all that, getting lads out there, just tough shit what happens to them. That sort of understanding was left behind. And all of a sudden, we used to just call them jellyheads. Again, you're right. They're just trying to blag it. They're just trying to get out of something.
So what made you apply for selection for Hereford then?
It was two things. First, by then, I was a platoon sergeant in a rifle company. And again, it was this term I'd never heard of until later on. But I think I was at that point, that pinnacle soldier point, where you go, well, what am I going to do now? Things are going well. Do I really want to, become running the company stores or becoming the company sergeant major, all that sort of stuff? What do I actually really want to do? And by then, there's been, I think, all battalions, there's been lads who have done selection, who have passed, and ones that have come back with all the horror stories, I could have passed, but, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So I had that sort of mixture of information about the regiment. And then there was one lad who went, and we all thought, myself included, he's never going to do it. And he got in first time. So I thought, right, if he can do it, I'm going to give it a go as well. But that's what really pushed me. So I got on with him and, got in contact with him and, loads of questions. And I thought, right, I'm going to give it a go. Actually, when I got there for the selection, it really sort of made up my mind. I thought, well, if I don't get in, I'm definitely getting out. Just purely if you like, the non-military atmosphere, the understanding of that sort of fact that if somebody says, right, mate, I want you to be here at 8 o'clock, well, they're telling you, they're ordering you. They're not, so if you didn't understand what was being said, that those weren't for you. So, and I got it straight away. And I thought, right, if I don't get in, I will get out. With no idea what I was going to do, but I will get out.
No, it's interesting to say about how you took inspiration from somebody, because psychologically, I think, from what I've heard of friends who've got through selection, and a classic story for me is there's a guy who from our unit went there and found everybody finds the initial selection hard on the hills, but we knew he was fit enough to get through that, and he came back from the jungle, and basically he was saying that when he was in the jungle, because in the jungle there's plenty of time to think at night and that, and he said he would just be lying there at night chewing himself up over small mistakes he made during the day on the ranges or whatever, and he basically psyched himself out. He went to the DS and said, not for me, I'm going to RTU. And he went to get his debrief, and they said to him, well, why have you done this? You're doing fine from our perspective. Yeah.
Certainly during the general phase, because it's the first time where we're looking at you as an individual. I've done a 3-in-1 selection as a DS, and basically when you're looking at candidates, particularly in the jungle phase, because it's the very first time where they're being assessed, if you like, as an individual within a team. So a lot of people can't actually do anything on their own initiative. Amazing soldiers, but they've got to be told what to do. So that really doesn't work. Or you've got selfish guys as well, without them realising it. There's part of the jungle phase at that time is that everybody had to get up with standard 5 words a minute, and I think it was 20 Q codes on Morse code, the basics of communications. So everybody there is not Morse code trained. Every 5 minutes you go doing your things, you've got your flashcards out, all the rest of it. So there was a guy there, an infantry guy who came from a signals platoon and was good. He's cracked it. But actually he failed, and he was a good soldier as well. But he failed because none of us saw this guy helping anybody else. It's not as if he was being sort of, I'm just going to keep it because I'm going to pass. But he never entered his head to give anybody, even to start using the lad's flashcards just to question him. Nothing. And he thought, well, okay, it's because you're left to your own devices. And you're never told how bad or good you're doing. Because nobody knows until, if they pass the file, until you get back to the UK anyway, which is, is a pain in the ass, quite frankly, for the candidates. On the selection, I found the jungle phase the hardest, purely because of that. No idea how good or bad you were doing. And again, from this mate who got in beforehand, who I thought would never make it, he just said, look, all we've got to do is but which is something that I still do now. He said, look, just be on time with a kit and do the best you can. That's what you can do.
The follow was that easy.
If it's that easy, yeah. With being there on time, with the kit you need, and do the best you can. And that was it.
I mean, a recipe for success, mate. But I say, and the jungle's an unforgiving environment anyway. And he was saying they'd be stood to in the morning, and the DS would just come round and just pat him on his shoulder or whatever, just to make sure he's got out his dry kit and he's got his wet kit on. Yep. Or I'll be a whisper in the ear, show me your compass. Just checking you've got the bearing onto the ERV. And he's just saying it's just all these little things running through your mind, piling the pressure on.
Absolutely. And then certainly, sometimes just say, well, unload your weapon, just to see if they have it made ready. Because a lot of lads won't, because they don't want to cock it up.
An ND.
So I don't understand. What's the point of you being here if your weapon's not made ready? What's the point of being stood to? So it's all that sort of stuff. And now you do that after week 2, when they're starting to get a bit knackered and they're read about their NDs, all that sort of stuff.
Look at my research. You're badged in 84, is that correct?
Yeah.
2 years after Falklands. I've just read Cedric Delves' book, Across an Angry Sea. And what I find quite fascinating about Hereford down south is that was really the first time they'd been sort of taken back in large scale to the Green Army. Delves' book makes it clear that the army didn't quite know how to deal with them, and Hereford didn't really know how to deal with the Green Army. And the regiment paid a heavy price down there. I mean, there was at least 18 killed in a heli crash.
Yeah, it did spread on that, right, yeah.
And there was a couple others killed as well. So you turn up 2 years later. How much of an impact did that war have on the regiment's sort of training and that type of thing? Or was it just a case of people were more or less there and just needed a bit of fine tweaking?
Well, do you know what? There wasn't much. Yeah, it wasn't if you got in and you sort of joined the squadron and it was spoken about that much. It was interesting that obviously the people at passing selection post Falklands had that experience. But sort of new lads turn out, just shut up and get on with it, basically. So it wasn't as if it was a major thing. I think the only thing that people were quite impressed about was South Georgia, Jewish squadron lads taking submarine South Georgia. And so those lads were sort of, I never met them for about a year because you're always away sort of thing. But that was if anybody's going to talk about the Falklands, that's what they were talking about. Purely the fact they're getting down there in the first place, to get into South Georgia to go and do this. So it wasn't a major thing because you're in this sort of cycle of pure operational Ops 1 and Ops 2 and then training cycle as you're moving around. People are on team jobs, so team jobs come up, or like a half squadron jobs come up. So people are bouncing all over the place, really. So it's not as if, like a rifle company, everybody's together all the time because everybody's all over the place.
Right. So I did a pod on the Falklands with Nick, a guy and I was surprised at how poor the kit art was at the time for the regiment generally. They had to scrounge a lot of kit from Delta, and I even did a pod with a guy from the MAW card, and the regiment broke into their ISO container and nicked a load of weapons and stuff as well. So yeah, improvise, adapt, overcome. But Nick tells a really good story when they did the Pebble Island raid. And Nick had been in the regiment that long, and I think he was on the FSG, and they're sneaking up to the position, and he hears this commotion behind them, and there's two senior NCOs knocking 7 bales of crap out at each other. No idea. And Nick looks at this other guy next to him and just sort of shrugs. But it made me laugh, as it shows you the regiment is like everybody else. There's all these rivalries, things like that happen. But when you turned up, was there anything that surprised you when you got to your squadron, like that type of thing?
Yeah, do you know, it's, well, first of all, there was that, and it's not a lack of discipline, again, because of the way the system works. Like, Sergeant Major go, mate, I want you to go and do this, and, you know, he's ordering you to go and do it. So there was a bit of that, because everybody was encouraged to have an opinion, and that really, like, sparks things up. So I'm really, really lucky when I joined the squadron. I'm in the B squadron. The whole squadron was involved in a job in Southeast Asia, because normally you don't see anybody for ages. You know, people are all bouncing around. So I had this period of 2 months where it sort of met everybody over the time. It was all in different, like, troop locations, but, you know, you get to meet everybody. That amount of argument and that amount of people getting really, really angry with somebody, get really pissed off. Sometimes it come to blows. Sometimes it's like, just stand down sort of thing, because they've got their opinions. So you're encouraged to give your opinion. But the downside of that is, a lot of the time, you think your opinion's right. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And again, because of, if you like, that overt lack of structure, you got people who are a bit punchy. I mean, and certainly our troop senior, who was a staff sergeant, so we were very had sort of two officers because of the selection process. His claim to fame that he was in the UK karate team as a young guy. So when he said something, nobody would argue. Everybody go, well, okay. But, you know, sometimes it did get a bit, like, heated. And that's what I found quite interesting. And actually, you know, in marriage, I thought, right, I'll just keep my gob shut, as everybody advises you. Just keep your mouth shut, keep your ears and eyes open, and just see how this thing works. And try and pick somebody who you think is the perfect regiment soldier and all that, and just watch and listen, see how he works and how he operates, and try and sort of emulate it. And again, as the new lad, you know, I just kept out of it anyway, because I didn't know half of the people they were moaning about or, you know, having fights with. So I just left it alone. On jobs as well, if jobs are coming up and, you know, the way to do a job, or, you know, we had during a time on what we called the troop, which was the regiment's contingent in Northern Ireland. And we had a guy who was finding religion, which was... basically from Delta. Delta was quite a religious organisation at that time. So with the exchanges, we had a guy who ran over and found religion, because Delta used to have prayer meetings, breakfast meetings, all that sort of stuff. Found religion. So
was he the one that became a padre?
No, he did, yeah. Yeah, Frank Clewins, yeah. Yeah, so Frank was disagreeing with the ways of what was going on, certainly on some of the ambushes. You know, it did create a lot of friction, you know, and he was doing it on a moral ground and, I presume a religious ground. Frank was coming up with his decisions, and, he was an NCO, so he was a patrol commander. He was coming up with his decisions based on his own sort of morals and religious conviction by then he had. And that created a real conflict within the, you know, what's simply called the troop in Northern Ireland, which was a composite sort of troop, but the troop within Northern Ireland. And obviously the higher sort of, you know, echelons, because obviously we were controlled by Special Branch, by Tasking and Coordinate Group, TCGs. So, you know, there was always this friction. But now looking back, at least Frank, I disagree with him, but at least Frank stood by what he felt. You know what I mean? It was quite, so there was some moral sort of, you know, moral bravery there. But it didn't help us at all.
In 2010, you underwent a psychological study at Oxford Uni, and you were diagnosed as a functioning psychopath. One of the things that worried me a little bit was I looked down what's called the Hare checklist. And it lists... you'll be familiar with that, but it lists 22 traits But actually, I'm going to list 6 here, and it scares the crap out of me, because this could be any soldier. So, glibness, superficial charm, egocentric, pathological liar, lack of remorse, impulsive behaviour, and drug and alcohol abuse. Maybe not so much the drugs, but certainly the alcohol abuse. So, how and why were you tested? And how did you feel about the diagnosis? And actually, did it contribute to your success as an SF soldier?
Yeah, well, I was approached by the Department of Experimental Psychology at University of Oxford. So they were doing a joint project with Harvard in the States. And what they were looking at was where what are called the functioning psychopaths populate. So it was becoming very clear at that stage. The functioning ones are in politics, finance, medical profession, particularly neurosurgery for some reason, the military and law. They were the 5 main pillars where these people sort of populate and sort of do their stuff. They came to me and they said, well, look, do you want to take part in these psychological testings and then clinical tests? And yeah, why not? I thought I was going to lay down on a couch. You don't just sit in a chair, but when's the first time you saw your mother, and that sort of stuff. Yeah. And then you go through the clinical sort of tests where you have lots of sensors on and you're subjected to a test that was designed in the States and can look at what goes on in the brain when you're subjected to different stimuli. What happened was that I have a non-functioning amygdala, which is a small part of the brain that gives you empathy, fight and flight, that sort of stuff. It's in the old part of the brain. So basically, the neurons just went away from the amygdala, and they just had different pathways going in. So you mentioned bob hair. So if you look at Bob hair, I think it changes every few years at the moment. But it's at 34. If you had a criminal conviction, go to the Old Bailey, I don't know, mass murder, I don't know, loads of people or whatever. Mm-hmm. As you go through your psychological and clinical tests, anything over 34, then defence can say that you're actually you've got a mental deficiency. I registered at 38, and what happened was that the compliance team, I had to do it again because the compliance team had to be changed to make sure. Obviously, there's always compliance people to make sure that everything's working well. So they brought another lot of compliance people in the following day, and they went through it again. The results became quite sort of well known in academia, in these different journals, mm-hmm. that sort of thing. Because I'm still within the spectrum of functioning. It went on from there, and then one of the guys at this Department of Experimental Psychology, Kevin Dutton, he said, well, look, they've always wanted to do an accessible book rather than a sort of an academic book that will go through an academic publisher or something, So that's where we started to come up with ideas for 2 books. If you're looking at the psychopathy, because it's in the spectrum, we always think of Hannibal Lecter and Ted Bundy, all these guys, and Ted Bundy was at 38 on that during that time at that scale of Bob hair. Instead of looking at those sort of guys, let's have a look at, because there are people who do exist in society and, then find made pillars where they are and the reasons why, and how you can use some of the things that they don't use, because their amygdalas don't work. This thing called the hippocampus that is slightly sort of skew whiffed because of that as well. So they look at things a different way and how that can help in everyday life, really. Even getting somebody to make that phone call because your next door neighbour owes you 50 quid. They've never paid you back, but you're too embarrassed to phone them about it. And we'll just do it. He sends to what happens. People with who register high on the scale of psychopathy, they don't have any problems with that. It's not as if they're arrogant or they just don't think about it. It's not an issue. It's not an issue. It's I don't empathise with things. Sometimes a problem because I found it, and I still do actually. I find it quite hard to recognise what's going on with people's faces. Whether it's happiness, fear, and all that. It's slightly, the people with high on the autism scale have that problem in a good way. So I find it sometimes difficult. In fact, my wife's given me like emoji smiley things I keep in my wallet. This is happy, this is sad. I've had it for years. What happens is that people like themselves can create what's called cold empathy. So actually, I don't care. All right, your cat's dead. Well, what do I care? But I know you care because you're crying.
And that's what you expect me to do.
I've got So what I've got to do is then buy a bunch of flowers. We had a period where our spirit goes, right, if you see this face, you've got to make a cup of tea, see this face, you've really cocked up, you've got to buy a present. Just before lockdown, we had 12 NutriBullets. So kept on buying them. So just keeping them in the cupboard. So I've really got NutriBullets for Christmas after that. Because in my head, I've got to buy, right, so I've cocked up, so I've got to buy something. So, because she uses NutriBullets, I'll get a NutriBullet. In that way, it was a learning sort of process. Stuff doesn't sort of register in the same way. So to function, you've got to understand what the real world does and then work your way into that, understanding what you understand, which isn't a lot compared with real people. That's the problem, really.
You talked about some of the drawbacks there of having psychopathic traits, but do you think some of those traits helped you in your successful career as an SF soldier?
Yeah, totally. Without realising it, because I had no idea I was registering quite high on the spectrum. But, again, going back to that mutual contract and thinking, well, okay, right, well, I'm in a regiment now. They want me to do this. Well, I'll do it. I'll end up going to Foreign Intelligence Group because there was a period where, quite rightly, and again, everybody disagreed, myself included, disagreed with the fact that people from squadrons had to go to Foreign Intelligence Group, go back over the water because we were losing that skill. And the argument put forward was that, well, if you wanted to be a 14 Intelligence Group operator, well, you would have gone 14 in, but you haven't. What you've done, you've come to the regiment. So there was literally vigilante groups around, and one squadron sergeant major had his little gang were going around. People were volunteering. They were going, no, you're not. And again, going back to what you were saying before, people getting quite sort of, aggressive about it all. So thankfully, because no one was volunteering, people were chosen. And myself and another guy at B Squadron, we were chosen. Again, because we come from housing estates and, all that sort of stuff. So when you're working we were working in Derry for 2 years. So when you're working in the Bogside, Chantella, all that sort of stuff, unconsciously, you still feel slightly at home, because it's an housing estate, spar shop's the same, people are the same. Basically, you can exude that unconscious sort of confidence. But I don't mind going. I thought it was all right. I hated going at first because I had to make it look like I was, I didn't want to go. But I thought, no, I'll do it. But it's like, why not? I'll get on with it. And I liked it a lot, actually, and learned a lot. You know what I mean? It's like, if I don't like it, I'll get out. And that was the whole thing. If you don't like what you're doing, you get out. It's easy as that.
So I find that really interesting because, again, I listened to another podcast recently and a guy in it was saying, and these were figures, if I can remember them rightly, they might not be exactly right. He estimated 2% of infantrymen were psychopaths, and that figure would be around 8% if applied to special forces.
I wouldn't agree with that. I think that it's quite interesting. If you're looking at psychopathy as a percentage of the real world population, it's less than 1%. If you're looking at people who can function, because obviously there's a lot of people who can't function, and so that's why they land up murderers. They got their foot on the pedal and they just can't let go. They're on it full time.
The penny's just dropped now. The important thing that you've said there is functioning psychopaths.
Yeah, which is a smaller percentage of the less than 1% of the people who are really high on the spectrum anyway. On the planet. There's all these words, sociopath, all these sort of things, which is a word that hasn't been actually clinically used since the 1970s, but we still use it in sort of parts. So there's different sort of, if you like, sort of spectrums to hit. And obviously, because we've culturally been brought up on, again, TV, film, books, all that, psychopath, Hannibal Lecter and all that. So anybody who's demonstrating any of these sort of traits is naturally a psychopath, is actually not so. Well, thankfully, it's, again, less than 1% of the population. So, but without a doubt, there'll be people with other traits because, by definition, you've gone into the army anyway. You've been in the army for quite a while, and then you're getting into SF. There's a lot of hurry up and wait, of course, but and sometimes, and then it's like full on, and they stop. So that that has an effect on people, and also the fact that you can be on jobs. Literally, you come back, I don't know, a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is, you'll get picked up from wherever you are. The helicopter brings you into Hereford, and you're home the same day. And then you've got to run around and find a cat, cut the grass, all that sort of stuff. And a lot of people find that very, very difficult, getting back into that domestic sort of environment. Literally 24 hours from that, you've been on a job. So people with sort of different sort of situations on whatever spectrum, they go one way or the other. They get on with it, and then you just do it because that's what you're here to do now. Cut the grass or whatever. Or you go the other way. People find it very, very difficult to get back into that, and that's when again all the anger and all that sort of frustration sort of comes out. And a lot of the times you always know those lads because actually they're not in no rush to get home. You know what I mean? They'll be straight back in camp drinking tea in the interest room all day, sort of thing. So yeah, there's good and bad in that. But for me, without a doubt, without realising it, actually, it's been an advantage. And even outside as well, stuff I've been doing since I've got out, absolute advantage. With this lad, Kevin Dutton, this psychologist, he does a lot, or used to a lot. He's in Australia now doing it, but he used to interview inmates at Broadmoor. And I went in with him as his bag character. I just wanted to go in and have a look because you hear all this business. So I went in with him as a bag carrier. So he's doing all the bit. I've got his briefcase, all that sort of stuff. So we've gone in, and what he was doing, he was interviewing a serial rapist and murderer. So he would rape, and then sometimes he would murder, if he could get away with it. Sometimes he'd be discovering he had to run. So what he was talking about with this guy was about being contained, being incarcerated. He's never going to leave this place until. And it was really interesting, this guy. First of all, he said, I would never want to change the way that I think about life. I would never want to change anything. Because actually what it is you, and he's pointing at Kev Dutton. He went, you're the one who's in prison. You're married, you got kids, you got all this sort of shit. He says, I've got none of that. I'm actually totally free. Then he looks over at me. I'm in the corner there. There's the bag carrot. And said, ask him. He'll know. And it's really interesting that there's this thing, almost like aliens meeting each other. And I'm sort of looking at him, and he went, well, don't you? And I do. and then what Dutton said when we came out, he said he's never met a functioning or dysfunctional psychopath who's high on the spectrum who actually would want to change the way that they are. And absolutely, and I'm one of them. It's really, really interesting. So you can be in like Broadmoor for the rest of your life, or you can be, running a Fortune 500 company. Quite happy. Don't want to change it.
It's probably safe to say your book, the hugely successful Bravo 20, unleashed the genre of the SAS memoir. Before that book came out, everybody had a copy of Lofty's survival book. I remember reading Soldiers and Sherpas by Brummy Stokes and Bronco Lane. And the only other one I remember is Soldier Eye SAS. Younger people now won't know how controversial that your book was at the time, both within Hereford and at Ministry of Defence. And at the same time, Peter Dillabillier's book came out. His might have been a little bit before you. And I think you were both banned from camp as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, for about a year, I think. And then the 1st of April, I was made a member of the Regimental Association again. It's quite interesting because I'd done 18 years by then. I was getting out because I was going to join a PMC, an American PMC, and go back to Colombia. And because we had a job, the regiment had a job in Colombia, and I'd done a tour down there. It was an American-funded job. The Americans were then privatising, which is quite a new thing, to privatise the job, and they're going to be called Plan Colombia. So what was happening was that the companies that were given those contracts then went out to the people, both American and Brits, who were on that job, and said, look, right, we realise we've only got a few years to go and all that. Well, here's the financial package. Do you want to do 2 years, this, that, and the other? So I looked at it, and there was about 4 or 5 were looking at it, and there's 3 of us who actually went. I went, yeah, I'll do that. And again, just looking at it, thinking, right, well, it's the mortgage paid. Yeah, as simple as that. And I'll get 18 parts of 22 on the pension. Yeah, all that sort of business. So I thought, right, I'll do that. I'll go back to Colombia for a couple of years, working for an American PMC. So as that was going on, I got an invitation from a senior member of DSF, and they were out for dinner. So it was an invitation, but you will be there at 7:30 on Tuesday night, sort of thing. So turned up, and an offer was put to me. So basically, there was going to be books written about what was going on in Iraq during the war. So what was going to happen, there was going to be this high-level stuff that was going on in Riyadh, with the big decisions made. Schwarzkopf said this, DWS said that, this went on. We moved all the tanks around and all this sort of stuff. And then what they wanted me to do was to do my bit, talking about Bravo 20, and then the way that Riyadh would interact would be in the way that, once the reports had come in, that the patrol was missing, there's been no, sit reps that had been sent. The information that we went out with originally was wrong. There was far more Iraqi military activity out there and all this, which obviously Schwarzkopf sort of come to Hereford and apologised later. But he didn't know, as simple as that. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, I had a thought about it. And by then, Tornado Down had been published, which was John Nichols and John Peters. Them still in the RAF, they're on TV, radio, all this sort of stuff. So I found out John, I met him in Baghdad when we got picked up by the Red Cross. He was in there for a lot longer because we were in Baghdad, was in the interrogation centre. Then we got moved to Abu Ghraib, not knowing it was Abu Ghraib, because all the pilots were being held there. So I found him out and I went, right, well, this is what's happening. What do you reckon? So, obviously he fell on his kitchen floor laughing. And I said, well, how does all this book business work? So he explained it to me and, agents and publishers and how it all works. So when I went back to the regiment 2 days later, saw the commanding officer there and said, look, if I do it, I'm going to do it myself. And I went, yeah, okay. And that was it. So went through the process, and first draft was almost like a patrol report. So the publishers went, well, what's this crap? You've got to put emotion into it and sense of place, all these things that are needed. So I started to read Touching the Void, Joe Simpson's book. Fantastic. He gives you that sense of place and, what's going on in his brain, and amazing. Read that a couple of times, trying to sort of understand about how you can place this on, and then went through 2 more drafts of it. Book went to the MOD, no problems at all. We sat down. There was one thing they wanted changed, and that was instead of a fibre optic cable, they wanted a landline put in. Well, okay, that was changed. Went to the publishers. I even sent signed copies when it was first printed to the MOD, because some of the lads wanted signed books. All done. I went to Columbia and got a phone call from the publisher. Some of this book's doing rather well, and it still is now, in fact, biggest selling war book of all time. He said it's amazing. Do you fancy doing another one? And by then, just come back from a 2-week patrol, and I think, well, what do you think? Get us a ticket. Let's get back into this book business. So when I came back to the UK, and that's when I started to discover all this stuff that was going on. Some ex-brigadier was jumping up and down and moaning about it, but we have no idea of what was going on beforehand. It'd been to the MOD, it'd done all its stuff. It did, it'd been published, they got sent their books. So this is the crazy thing. The year it was published, I'm in the MOD main building. I've been an advisor for 10 years at the MOD after this, by the way, but to do with Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm in the main building because I'm getting picked up to go to Sandhurst, to the academy, to give the Christmas lecture on Bravo 20. So I jumped in the staff car, and there was all newspapers in the back of the night. So I'm opening up Telegraph, and there's some old brigadier or something jumping up and down, and it's an outrage, it's this, that, and the other. Yeah, I've just been invited to give the Christmas lecture at Sandhurst. So the whole thing was a bit crazy. And I was getting pissed off with it a bit until you started to understand, if you like, the business. And so what happens, all that done was generate more business, more book sales. So I'm talking with the agent. He says, no, don't worry about it. He says, just look at the figures, like boom, 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 boom. Because now what I had to do is start learning about, if you like, the business, the media and how it all worked really. So it was quite a confusing time, because I thought I'd done the right thing, and I did do the right thing. But it's how life just gets turned around, and then realising that, great, the more it turns around, the better. But it took a couple of years for me to realise that. The more it turns and the more confusion, the better, quite frankly.
You were the advisor on the Pacino De Niro heist film Heat, and that realistic shootout at the end. Did you have those guys on the ranges doing all the mag changes and everything else? How did it work?
The agent got this email from a production company in the States, this whole thing, Michael Mann's doing this film, blah, 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 and all that. And De Niro apparently read the book while he was in Australia doing something, and said, let's get this lad involved, because his backstory was that he was an ex-Marine, I think it was. And they said, right, I'm going to send you the script. I thought they were joking, but the script turned up. So the brief was from the director, Michael Mann, was then just go through the script, and it was looking at bits of tradecraft, like telephone calls and how you would move and all that sort of stuff. And the three things they wanted was the armored car robbery, the robbery within the bank, which is the prelude for the big shootout, and what was literally on the script just said World War III, and that was it. And he says it's going to be a big shootout, World War III. So played about it for a couple of weeks. So then I went to Los Angeles and met Michael Mann, and had a couple of days. We bought huge Tonka toys, doing the ramming of the armored car and talking about different linear cutting charges and all this sort of stuff. And I thought that was it then, so I was there for a couple of weeks. Great time in Los Angeles. And he said, well, we start pre-production in 2 months' time. When do you want to come over? Do you want to come over before or on the date or whatever? I said, well, I'm involved. He went, yeah. So that was good. So then, I was there for 7 months. What happened was that the actors, because Michael Mann is so sort of detailed about everything, he wanted everything that you saw on the screen for these lads to be able to do for real, for live. So he's literally getting them on the ranges in Orange County, near the prison. So nobody picked up brass, because at the end of the day, the prisoners were brought down to pick up the brass. It was really weird with the orange jumpsuits. So they're, doing your hair and all the actors are signing, bits of paper for them, all that sort of stuff. So anyway, so down there Orange County ranges. So it's really started with really basic stuff, really basic pistol work, because they'd done stuff, but they, so many different styles on it, and then they just wanted a more defined styles. So moving from pistol work, then going on to longs, and then eventually, once they're really confident with that and safe with it, then going into the scenarios, but doing them live. So we literally had a Lincoln Town Car that would drive onto the range. Everybody's in it, live ammunition, shooting through the windscreens, all that sort of stuff. Change the windscreens over, open it on bungees, going through it again and again and again. God knows how much the insurance was. Because actually Val Kilmer, without a doubt, became a competition shot, pistol shot. Absolutely amazing. Because what he said, look, he says, because I'm the supporting actor, if they're shooting scenes where the main actors look good, they're going to use them scenes. So I've got to be right on top of my game all the time. So I don't look slack. And he's so into it. And then he landed up buying his own weapons and, just getting into it in a big way, and then start entering some sort of, competitions. Was well in it, the pistol. In fact, during the film, you see Kilmer doing a mag change, and at the last on this big shootout. I was in Fayetteville, in North Carolina. I was doing a talk with the 82nd Airborne after the film, and I've never seen it in its entirety. So it was on at the local, multiplex, whatever called. So I ran down, 82nd Airborne, young lads. So Ron Kilmer's there, he's doing his firing. He lands up doing his mag change. All these lads are jumping up on their seats, going, all this. So I got on the phone afterwards. I phoned up my man and explained what happened. And because this guy is so much in detail, he said, exactly at what point did that happen? When was that? I said, I don't know, mate. I was just watching the film. Everybody started jumping up and down. I don't know exactly when it happened, So it was a great 7 months, really. It was just lots and lots of that training on the pre-production, and then just being there on the set all the time. So basically, the big shootout is fire maneuver. That's what it is. It's just fire maneuver. Police on the film are real Los Angeles police guys, because the way it works, only in America, because they got all the kit anyway, so they can be used for film, but they can't be paid. So all of a sudden, the production company buys them brand new body armor and holsters and all that sort of stuff, so that's how that works. So he's talking to the police, and basically what the training was all about was not stopping, but trying to contain. So there wouldn't be offensive, basically they would stand their ground and just try and contain everything. So that's why I thought about fire maneuver. We just kept on going through. All these lads are going to do is just stand their ground, because they've got no other choice, because that's what they've been trained to do. And that's why, thought of that whole thing of fire maneuver, just pushing it forward. What happened a couple of months later, I was going to get this award. National Rifle Association were giving this award. It was the most realistic gunplay in film sort of thing, So you go, You get a little bit of cut glass, it's a night out in Los Angeles, all that sort of stuff. All well and good. Tickets turned up, and then literally a week before, the First Bank of America in Los Angeles got hit exactly the same. Police didn't have high caliber weapons enough to take the body on. You see them taking hits, with 9mm. They had to go into gun stores and try and get bigger caliber weapons. 9 police officers got shot. Nobody got killed. What happened was that when they went to their flat, my book was there, the heat stuff was there, the posters, all the gear and all that. So I got a phone call from the production office, and I know what was coming. And I went, I'm not coming, am I? They went, no. No. You couldn't take this anyway, just go on holiday. They went, no. After that, I then started working on other films in Los Angeles. And so, and I met up with the police liaison guys and all that, and everything. I was a bit pissed off during that time, but everything was smoothed out after that, and they were all right.
You're now involved in an initiative called We Served, quite an important thing you're working on at the minute. So can you tell us a bit more about why you helped set it up and what it does exactly?
Basically, it amalgamate everything for veterans at one place that actually you need in real life. So at the moment, we've got different variations of discounts and those sort of things. But actually, in the real world, it's like medical care, finance, not only with everyday banking, but with advice with finance, help with things like PTSD. It's not as if we've got people who are going to cure them, but we've got proper signposts to get people to that. So insurance deals with insurance companies for car insurance, that everyday stuff. If we can just have 1 point of that, people can then mix and match what they need and use it. Certainly with the work I was doing with the MOD during the post 9/11 wars and all that, and you could see, like lads coming out, lots of help, but a lot of it was charity help, which was short term. And in some cases, it was more to do with the charity than it was to do with the people. The charity themselves, want to get up there and do their thing. Trying to think of something where the veteran's in control. The veteran decides how they're going to use it, what they are going to use, what they don't need, all this sort of stuff. And this is where the idea, not from me, I wish it was, We Served came from an ex-Scots Guards guy who came up with the idea. From there, it generated. And because I've been involved in IT companies, startup companies that have been part of, and we do that 4-year turnaround and sell them on, I sort of understood the if you like, the importance of IT, getting on that, working that all out. And that's how it really started. So going out to the banks in the UK with no luck whatsoever, said, well, we just want products that are for veterans, ideally cheaper and, more efficient, all these sort of stuff. So we landed at the one that we came up with, because they do an amazing job in the US, is Chase. So Chase are now in the UK. Went to see Chase. I've got your picture ready. We're all there. I've got pages of pitch, all that sort of stuff to talk about it. Got through about the first half a page, and the guy who runs Chase in the UK went, yeah, we get it. Let's do it. I mean, oh, come on. We've got 4 pages here. Let's get it all out. We've been working on it all week. It's just amalgamating those things. And again, with things like discounts, what we've discovered is that there's lots of discount services out there. However, because it's very hard, and hopefully, more people get the Veterans ID card, it won't be. But because it's been so hard to verify that people are veterans, everybody's been signing on, you really don't get decent discounts, because they'll give you the generic discount that they normally give to everybody else. So, Cotswold Camping, they give 15% discount if you're serving or you're a veteran. But they give that if you're a National Trust member. So what it is going to these people and say, right, if we can identify it, we can definitely identify these are veterans, will you give us a better deal? And when they went, yes. Emotionally, they get it. Financially, it's been very difficult because they can't verify who's taking these discounts. Obviously, there's a Veterans ID card that is being rolled out, but we've now got a system involved with put in to help us regimental associations. So as people are coming in, they're giving the regimental number. If it looks a bit iffy, we can go to the association and go, lads, does this guy really exist? That sort of thing. So we can get good variation. So we've 24/7 access now to GPs, loads of different medical insurance products now at different levels, depending what you want, at real prices, not commercial prices. So It's still in development. We've got employment where we're bringing in lots of employment companies, but looking at jobs that, again, are, first of all, are real jobs rather than part-time jobs or, you know, all the normal sort of stuff that you find on these websites. Bringing in real jobs, people to actually mentor to get people into these jobs as well. So it's a one-stop shop for veterans that we've got a process now of verifying that they really are veterans. So, it's still going on. We're just looking at the moment with a physiotherapy organisation where, if people want to go, I don't know, sports injuries or old injuries, whatever's going on, there's a decent deal there to get physiotherapy rather than paying like 40 or 60 quid a session, commercially. At the moment, it's all still free for members. To get in now, it's all free because obviously what we want to do is not only get the membership up, but also at the same time get feedback to make sure the technology is working correctly. Because obviously we've got all these partners now. We want to make sure that their products are working and they get it in because it's instead of a charity, it's a business because we're bringing in business to help us. So, yeah, it's working. It's really exciting, actually. It's really exciting.
Sounds good. And I'll put links up in our show notes and all that. And I'll put some stuff out on the social media for the podcast so people can start going over and having a look and just see what WeServe's all about. You're sort of still in development phase at the minute, Andy. When do you think it will be, across the start line?
I reckon it'll be about towards the end of September, actually. Then we're looking at monthly fees. And again, it's monthly fees about what you want out of it, basically. And I think it's going to start off at $3.99. I think you get the lot for $3.99. And then we're seeing, and again, I don't know, like physiotherapy classes, maybe, eventually give it a year, maybe nobody really wants that as well. So then you can readjust and move around. I personally think it's going to be the healthcare, the banking and insurances.
And especially if you can get that little bit extra. Thanks for letting us know about that. And I'll put stuff out on social media and the show notes. So just to finish off then, we had a good chat about films. That leads us on to Desert Island Dits, where the guest chooses their favourite book, film and luxury item. So I'm intrigued, Andy. What have you picked for your book, first of all?
The book is, it's a Dickens. It's Our Mutual Friend. It's normally the favourite book is the one I'm reading, basically. So at the moment, just started on this. This is my third Dickens. But what I find really interesting about Dickens is that it's about people. So this one's, it's about new money, the guy who's made loads of money out collecting rubbish in London, like new money, old money, murder. It's about people. When I've read Dickens, what you can do is replace the horse and carriage with a car, take out the coal fire, put central heating in, and then dress them differently. And do you know what? It could be today. Because it's about people. Nobody's changed. It's really interesting reading, because this guy really had it squared away. He really saw all of the nuance of, even in Victorian society and the way that it sort of technically all sort of very straight and all that. But it wasn't. There was intrigue, there was jealousies, there was all these sort of things going on. And he does it brilliantly. Of course he does. It's amazing. So at the moment, he's Our Mutual Friend. And then asked me at the end of the summer to be another one. So this is one I'm taking on holiday.
It's interesting to say about Dickens because Dickens actually came from quite a humble background, didn't he? And he started off serialising all these books and... Yeah, Pickwick. It was like amazing. And again, because of the way that society was and culture was, it was like, nothing really because it was just all serialisation and newspaper. It wasn't a real book and, But actually, things changed and people enjoyed it because he was writing about real people and real people were reading it. It's quite sort of interesting rather than a highfalutin sort of situation. And it's the same as actually about sort of Jane Austen. I've never read any Jane Austen. I'm down to see, what's her name? Lucy Worsley. Oh, the historian.
Yeah, she's the historian. So what she's doing, I suppose, a stage show, a stage show talking about Jane Austen, and about the context and all that. It'll be really interesting, again, because it's about people. Find really, and then, who knows? Might end up reading some of her, who knows?
And Phil?
It has to be Heat, of course. I figured on Netflix, it still comes up within the top sort of 7 or 8 because it was great for me, if you like, getting into that business and, just a great experience, actually, and a great film.
Well, tie-in for me, mate, is it was the first film I took my now wife to see when it was released in the cinema back in the 90s. So there you go.
You remember it.
Yeah, I know. Let's go and see here. I think she thought it was some set in a tropical island. So to finish off with, luxury item?
It's got to be a knife. And it's going back, you mentioned them lofty wise men, you're only as sharp as your knife. But you can do everything with it. You know, you can eat, shelter, fire, and do a lot with it. Absolutely everything with it. So probably, actually not, it would probably be a multi-tool now.
Not a problem, mate. You can have all them. So, mate, I really appreciate your time. That's it for another episode. Thanks to Andy for coming to the podcast, and to you, the listener, for your continued support and suggestions. Please keep them coming. And our email, social media links are at the bottom of the show notes. You can find us all the usual suspects, including Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. If you download us from iTunes, like the podcast, it'd be great if you could leave us a review there or anywhere you get your podcast from. And thanks again to Nick Beale for his continued help and offering technical support for his company ISARR. And we'll see you next time on The Unconventional Soldier.